Classical Conversations presents Refining Rhetoric with CEO Robert Bortons, a podcast where faith, business, politics, and classical education meet. Join us as we use the classical tools of rhetoric to seek truth in every arena of life.
Welcome back to another episode of Refining Rhetoric. Today, do we have a plan to turn Texas blue? And GameStop is back in the news, and we'll break down what's going on with that this episode. So let's jump in.
I don't think the stock exchange is real anymore. All of the money's fake. It's all made up. I don't think we're in an upside down world with all of the stuff happening in securities right now. So let's talk about this Bloomberg article about BlackRock, Citadel back Texas stock exchange in challenge to the New York Stock Exchange. What's going on with this?
Yeah, so on the outside, on the veneer, it looks very innocent. New York, as we talked about 2 weeks ago in our Donald Trump episode, and is really cracking down, expanding the power of the state, adding regulations. A lot of business people don't want to do business there anymore because it's just they're making stuff up out of thin air and trying to extort you for money. And so people are looking for a place to move. And so BlackRock, one of the biggest money managers, or the biggest money manager in the world, trillions of dollars, if not tens of trillions of dollars that they manage. And then Citadel Securities and some other investors are backing an upstart Texas stock market. And so this one, it sounds like it's going to be a digital market and should be very interesting. So I think on the veneer, it looks like, okay, yeah, this makes a lot of sense and something that people should support. But
so talk to me about this, because what stock exchanges are there? Because I think about each country having their own stock exchange. There's a New York Stock Exchange, but now there's going to be a Texas. Will that be a different thing that companies are traded on, or will they have a lot of overplay? What does that mean?
So each country kind of has their own stock exchange, which is the place you can go buy and exchange stocks. And in the U.S., we've basically got, you can list on the New York Stock Exchange right now, which has kind of been the historical one. And then there was the NASDAQ, which typically is kind of more of more IT tech-related companies tend to list there. And so both of those, I believe, are listed in the state of New York. So it makes it a huge financial center. And companies, of course, then have to operate in the state of New York. If you're in there, you're probably got some offices open. You've got your people there, and therefore you're having to operate by the rules that the state of New York gives you. So that's kind of where they see this opportunity to go to more of a regulation-free area or a regulation-free state and start a new stock exchange. And theoretically, I guess they could get some of the companies on these two to move over, or new companies that go public could potentially select the Texas Stock Exchange. So this is where they going.
This is really interesting to me because, I mean, maybe I'm exposing my own financial illiteracy, but I had no idea that the New York Stock Exchange wasn't like a federally. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how to say it. Like,
they're not federal run; they're a private entity.
So yeah, that's what I find so interesting about all of this, is that there's actually an avenue for someone else to come in, a private corporation, to start another exchange center. Because I had never had I didn't have an inkling that there was a private anything behind the stock exchange. I just thought it was working in conjunction with the government, making sure that things were properly tracked. But that was the extent of it.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely government agencies that have rules and compliance that the stock exchanges have to follow. They're basically individual organizations. And
so then the big appeal with this is going to be that they're able to move to Texas and have less regulation. They don't have to deal with the New York state regulation. They can deal with whatever Texas allows. And so it's going to allow for more competition within the marketplace. Is that the idea?
Yeah, that's the idea. And like I said, people are trying to flee New York as quick as possible right now. But then let's look at these organizations, Chris. And I think this is where people might say this is a great idea. But let's think BlackRock is pushing SEG, DEI, LGBTQ+. So all of the things that have made New York a regulatory hell to work in, they're planning on bringing that ideology to Texas. And the Democrats who, if you go look at where these two organizations typically donate their money, which is to the left and to left causes, they're going to bring those politics into Texas. And if the left can turn Texas blue, then you won't see a conservative Christian as president for decades, maybe centuries, maybe the rest of the time in the United States.
But do you think this evacuation is going to backfire? I mean, I'm looking at what's happening with California and New York. Both of these cities, like the primary city hubs, are falling into shambles, and people are leaving in droves. And so, do you think it's going to cycle through? They're going to be like Chicago for a few years, and then eventually they'll swing back red. Is that kind of the course of events that we see happening?
No, I mean, I don't know that you'll swing it back to another political party. And of course, it's not necessarily, the Reds got plenty of issues too. But, it's just this, what I see, and I kind of complain here in North Carolina, is like we've invited Apple and Amazon, and we've subsidized these billion-dollar companies to build offices here and move headquarters here and build things here. So we have, conservative business people paying taxes to our state, and our state is then bringing in, conservative Reds. We're a purple state, but these conservative legislators are then effectively bribing these billion-dollar companies who hate our values and bringing them into our state, which will then make it harder for those individuals who are good legislators to get reelected, or for us to continue to be a conservative state with low regulation, low taxes, and those things. And so really the thing that gets me with this is because these people are not classically educated, and because they think in watertight bulkheads, all that they're trying to do is enrich their own pockets and get reelected in the short term, but they don't look at the long-term consequences of inviting people who despise your values into their state. And so, BlackRock and Citadel are happy to get rich off of those conservative values, but they don't plan on letting you keep them. They plan on, importing their ideology into the state so that they can form it after their own image.
All right. And thinking back to Citadel, because this is so did BlackRock acquire Citadel? Is that because I know Citadel was the company that actually was shorting GameStop that made news back in, I think, 2021 or whenever the GME squeeze happened.
Yeah. So I'm not quite sure, Chris, on if BlackRock acquired Citadel. I'm sure that Citadel had to figure out how to get some money to pay those short squeezes. But as you mentioned, GameStop is back in the news.
Yeah, so here's the article from CNBC, how Roaring Kitty's wealth went from 53,000 to nearly 300 million and could one day top 1 billion. This is crazy.
Yeah, so that's what got all the news. And so, in this article, Roaring Kitty, or Keith Gill, does have a name on Reddit that is has a curse word in it. So apologize for that. But it's bleeped out here. A lot of people don't really know what happened to GameStop 5 years ago and who Keith Gill is. So one of the things I would say is, I'm not saying the movie is edifying to your soul or, definitely has a lot of things that Christians would disagree with. But Dumb Money is the movie on Netflix that just came out about Keith Gill and the GameStop short squeeze. So
it's looking a bit like they made it too early. I mean, with the GME run up right now, and it looks like he's still holding a pretty sizable position in GameStop and expects it to squeeze again. So,
so for those who don't know what happened, you can buy stocks and hold them, but there's other mechanism that more sophisticated investors do, where you can short it, which basically means that you think the price is going to go down. And so you agree to sell shares at a certain dollar amount, but you don't actually own those shares. And then you can also long a position too, where you think it's going to go up. And so then you agree to, I guess, buy those shares.
Well, let's clarify, because not owning the shares, that's technically called naked shorting, which you're not supposed to be doing. You're not supposed to be able to sell out equities which you don't own. So typically you'd work in that, let's say I buy this thing for $10 and then I promise to sell it to someone later at a higher value. And so they pay me they're basically paying me money to be able to have the option to buy it later for what they think might be a discount. And in reality, it never ends up panning out for them. And so what I think Citadel got in trouble for with this was there were more shares outstanding. There were more shares in circulation than there should have been. And so someone somewhere was selling securities that didn't exist.
Yeah, so Keith Gill was a trader, and he kind of discovered this, I guess, when he was quit his job, and just started longing. And so when you put a call option for a long, you typically you buy the rights to those shares. And so you can buy, 100 shares for, $2 or $5, even if the shares themselves are much higher than that. And I'm sure someone who is an expert in this would say, Robert, it's not quite right. So this is not, 100% accurate. It's probably 95% accurate. But what happened was he saw that the Citadel and some of these other hedge funds had overshorted, that they had agreed to basically sell things that where there was more than they had to buy, that they would have to buy more than were out there, and that this would create, like they said, a short squeeze. So he just started longing it, and then he started promoting it on Reddit. Then he got called up into Congress. And so apparently they started shorting GameStop again, and we see that it is starting to roll again. But this is what definitely gambling. This isn't investing.
It's like Warren Buffett would say, it's rat poison. I mean, someone somewhere is going to make a lot of money off of it, but none of us are smart enough to be that person or dumb enough.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people started jumping in at the end. I mean, I bought a stock a few years ago at the end. I knew I wasn't going to, make money on it, but I knew I was kind of sticking it to the man. And all of these hedge funds that had tried to, we all had a lot of, sentimental value in GameStop, going there as a kid, picking out games, different things, playing. And there's actually no business case probably for GameStop to be around, which was, why groups like the Citadel were shorting it. But they got in over their skis.
I would say it's also interesting because this is sort of a Robin Hood versus the King John type story. Because, I mean, Tesla had this issue with shorts a long time ago, where shorts are basically very predatory on a company. Usually they're shorting a company that's already struggling. So financially, they're not doing great. And so they're starting to sell out imaginary shares into the marketplace and drive the value down, which then breaks the liquidity of this company, which is already hurting for cash. So it's this vicious cycle that a lot of companies get trapped in, and it ends up causing even more financial ruin to the company and eventually bankrupts them. And so it's fun to see a situation like this where you have a company which was just kind of doing okay, and they're not doing great, and they're on the decline. And so these big institutions decide to make their move and make whatever money and siphon whatever money out of this company they can before it goes away. And here we are at the very end, like it's flipped all the way around, and you have people that are coming to the basically defense of this company and saying, no, we're going to buy and hold it because we think that you're eventually going to have to sell back. You're going to have to buy back these shares that you sold.
Yeah. Well, it was really fun watching it happen live a couple years ago and following it on on Reddit. A lot of people, just heard about GameStop, and you probably remember it in the back of your mind, but didn't really know what happened. But it appears to be happening again. And if it goes Keith Gill's way, and I don't know, it has so far, so maybe we shouldn't doubt him, but he could potentially turn $53,000 into $890 million so far, and maybe over $1 billion. But I don't really see that happening this time, but I wish Keith the best of luck. Well, thank you so much for tuning in today. It's really important as Christians that we keep up with financial news and understand what's going on because, really, if we don't have sound money and sound financial practices, then it's very hard to operate the 10 Commandments. How can we not steal from our neighbor when we're using unsound money? How can we not envy what our neighbor has if we have an unsound money system? And I think a lot of our culture today is really, derived from the fact that our money is being inflated away and given to our, those people who have the power, giving it to their friends that also will back them up. So, yes, I think it's important. So keep listening to Refining Rhetoric. Keep watching, keep educating yourself on financial issues, on educational issues, and keep sharing these episodes with friends. We could not do them without you. So until next time, God bless. Hey everyone, I want to briefly interrupt this program to tell you about one of our newest Copper Lodge Library releases, Pride and Prejudice. It is a resource that our families read in the Challenge program. Our Classical Conversations multimedia company has produced this new Copper Lodge edition of this beloved, beautiful book that so many of us love and enjoy. Me not being one of those as a teenage male, not my favorite one that my mom required me to read, but as an adult, I definitely appreciate the story much more. And it's a beloved classic novel. And the wonderful thing about the Copper Lodge Library books is it has footnotes that include, definitions, pronunciations, historical context, and really just helps bring the story to life, as well as wide margins so that students can take notes and really have that conversation with the author. And I bet I would have enjoyed these books much more as a teenage male had I had these details provided for me in the books that I was reading. So students will be discussing Pride and Prejudice inside of our Classical Conversations communities. And of course, for those who might not be in CC, it's a wonderful book that you should include in every curriculum. So you can learn more about the Copper Lodge Library series at copperlodgelibrary.com and go to classicalconversationsbooks.com to purchase one today. Now back to the show.
Welcome to Classical Crypto with Will. It's always a pleasure to be with you. Today I want to cover a market update, an incredible speculative but interesting narrative, and talk a little bit about trading view as we get into more of the throes of the bull run. But first off, market update. It has been so frustrating in a way to be in crypto because since March 2024, Bitcoin has basically been trading between $60,000 and $70,000, bouncing around, sometimes dropped into the high 50s, but it's been up and down and up and down, up and down. So it's been frustrating. But with anything that's worth doing, patience is key. And for those of us who are trying to have patience and we're looking back at history and charts, developing a bull market run takes a long time, and it does take patience and accumulation and building, and there's certain thresholds that different asset classes have to hit and maintain to get the legs to go to the next level. So even though maybe you're frustrated if you're very involved in crypto, I'm definitely frustrated. I still see the charts and see that, wow, this is just a repetition. We're repeating the past in this hold pattern, because generally, historically, after having cycle, that halving date, when that hits, crypto really doesn't start to rise or start to go parabolic for months, 3, 4, sometimes even 5 months after historically. So if you're looking at it that way, this is a blessing when the crypto numbers are down still to accumulate more if you have decided to take the plunge and become an investor. So wanted to throw that out there. Frustration is there, but guess what? Take a chill pill, take a breath. This is totally normal. Now I want to get into a speculative narrative. Well, the narrative is real, but the way I'm going to present it is going to be hopefully comical, but it also plays into the whole narrative of why Bitcoin has really been compressed and has been playing out. So we have Gary Gensler, we talk about him a lot, right? He runs the SEC. You have Larry Fink, who is the CEO of BlackRock, the largest asset holder on the planet. And then you have someone by the name of Barry Silbert, who started the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, right? Which you can look it up. There are major problems and they have to sell Bitcoin. There's a big lawsuit brought against Grayscale and Barry. So let's say the narrative. So I'm going to tell you a story of Barry, Larry, and Gary. Barry got in big trouble with his Bitcoin trust. Gary Gensler saw that there's a huge lawsuit up against him. He was sued for $3 billion and may have concocted this narrative where Barry can stay out of jail if he sells all his Bitcoin to Larry. So again, Gary's sitting here going, you're going to jail, Barry, unless you get customer money back. Barry went to Larry and said, hey, buy my Bitcoin. And Larry is going, great, I don't want to buy Bitcoin at high rates from exchanges. I would rather buy Bitcoin OTC, which is over the counter, or directly from you guys. And he stays out of the press while that's happening. So everyone might be happy. Gary's going, hey, retribution has to happen. Barry's saying, I want to stay out of jail. Larry's saying, great, I want to buy Bitcoin at a discount. And that seems to be what's happening right now. And if that is happening, that could play into why Bitcoin's price isn't going up. Because as soon as Barry dumps, and we're talking billions and billions of dollars of Bitcoin, BlackRock is scooping up about the same amount every time that happens. So it's just a really interesting narrative. Now, if you are into crypto and you're tracking everything, I would recommend downloading TradingView. So when I talk about historical numbers, or, how did I know that the price of Bitcoin doesn't go up for 3 to 5 months after a halving cycle? Well, I'm using technical analysis and looking at charts and lines and graphs to see that. And I follow others that do the same. And it helps give you a mental picture of what's going on. Helps me definitely take a breath and trust the process, because I am a crypto investor and I definitely enjoy the space and then learning about technologies and whatnot. So none of this is financial advice, just to bring you more knowledge, entertainment, whatever we're supposed to say. But anyways, hope you have a wonderful day, and I can't wait to join you for the next segment of Classical Crypto.
Thank you for listening to Refining Rhetoric with Robert Bortons. Want more? Make sure to subscribe so you won't miss an episode. You can also follow us on social media to continue the conversation, and visit classicalconversations.com/rhetoric to find out how you can join a local homeschool community.